Welcome to the MYS Virtual Hangout. Here's your host, MYS Music Director, Raul Gomez.
You guys, Johannes Moser is standing by. He is just the best. And I'm so thrilled to have him on. He's so generous with his time, and I'm so excited he's willing to spend a little time with all of us, with the Metropolitan Youth Symphony community, and with everybody who's watching. So I really want to encourage you guys to ask questions today. If you're watching on Facebook, you can just write a comment on the video. If you're watching on YouTube, you can do the same. And right here on my screen, I see all the comments. So whenever there's a great question for Johannes, I'll make sure to forward that to him. But in the meantime, before we call him, if you are a Metropolitan Youth Symphony student of any of our ensembles, you received, well, bad news and good news this week, right? The bad news is that, unfortunately, because schools will remain closed for the rest of the year, we will not be able to have in-person rehearsals or performances. The good news is, however, that all MYS ensembles will get to create a virtual performance video, like the one that Symphony Orchestra, our most advanced full orchestra, made last week. And for those of you who didn't get to watch this video, I want to play it right now. We recorded remotely Brahms' Hungarian Dance No. 5. So many musicians from Symphony Orchestra recorded at home their individual parts. And then we put it all together into what we're calling a virtual performance. And I'm excited that all MYS students will get to do this. It's a great learning experience for everybody, and to play and record yourself to a click track and having to be so specific and accurate with your rhythm, with your intonation, with your articulation is a great exercise. And it's super fun because at the end you get a final product like this video I'm about to play of Symphony Orchestra playing Brahms' Hungarian Dance No. 5.
1, 2, 1.
So that was super fun to make, and it was our first try at something like this. And our most advanced orchestra, symphony orchestra, will get to do more of these. We're actually working on one each week for the next few weeks. And the rest of MYS ensembles, all the way to our youngest students, will get to do something like this. And we will do a live stream event, a live virtual concert sometime in late May or early June, where we will premiere each of the videos by all the MYS ensembles. So it'll be just like a concert. You'll have one group coming on stage and playing and then going, and then another group comes on, except it's a video. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so before we call Johannes in, I just want to remind everybody, ask questions on the comments. Yes, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the comments, and hopefully we can forward as many questions from you as we can. Also, I wanted to mention that if you're not familiar with MYS, we have over 500 students in 12 ensembles in Portland and Hillsborough, and we actually have auditions coming up. So go to our website, register to get our emails, and you're going to be getting information about auditions for new students for our next season. Okay. And our website is playmys.org, or you can just Google Metropolitan Youth Symphony and you'll find us. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's call Johannes on Skype. He should be ready for us. So here we go. Okay.
Oh, hi.
Johannes, there you are. How's it going?
It's going very well. Actually, I thought I would do this.
Yes.
Just to match the Barul style that is going on.
Now we're in sync.
We're in sync, absolutely. I also have glasses in case, maybe, but we'll keep that for the middle of the interview. For now, we're fine, I think.
I love it. So where in the world are you?
I'm in Munich,
Okay.
in the south of Germany, and I'm here in our house. I live in Vienna now, but I cannot go to Austria because the borders are closed, and so that is just the fact of life at the moment. And still, I'm very happy to be here, and the weather is great. It's springtime here, so it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this. How long ago did you move to Vienna?
Well, I bought a place there about a year ago, but you know how these things are. Things don't get finished in time. So I moved in December, and it's amazing. I mean, it's a city, of course, that is so important for us musicians because of all the composers that live there or are from there. But also, I love theater. So the theater there is absolutely amazing, actually.
And did you grow up in? Where'd you grow up? Because you're Canadian German or German Canadian as per your bio.
Well, I grew up here. I grew up in Munich.
Munich,
but
okay.
my mother is from Vancouver, so that's where my Canadian side comes from.
And did you spend time in Canada growing up? Did you go visit family or?
We would visit family. We would go to family gatherings and stuff like that. But I never lived there like full time.
Okay.
And which is a shame because it's a beautiful, beautiful country.
Right. Well, Munich is a beautiful city as well, and Vienna, oh my God, right? I mean, it's the cradle of.
It's like
yeah.
mind blow.
Yeah.
No, really, because you go around every corner, and there is one plaque saying, "Oh, Johannes Brahms lived here," and then it's like, "Oh, Schubert died here," and then and it's like, what is going on? It's all there. It's all concentrated in this place. So,
yeah,
it's nice.
Yeah, you're immersed in music, and I don't know. I feel like you walk the streets of a place like that, and you can almost feel those, the presence of those masters.
You do, and it's a feeling that also intensifies over time because you know certain details, but then you know the backstory to it, and then how it is. Like you visit first as a tourist, but then you really come into it, and it's one thing to know these things, but it's another thing to feel them. I would say.
Yeah. Okay. And so, Johannes, of course, audiences in Portland know you well because you are an artist in residence with the Oregon Symphony. You've been here to perform many times. whenever you're here, you take time to give master classes or visit with students, and you're doing outreach through the Oregon Symphony. But part of what we want to do today for this session is we want to get to know you a little bit better. And one way in which we do that is through a game that we play called Two Truths and a Lie. Okay? And we're going to do it twice.
Exactly.
You sent me a set of statements.
Yes.
And then I sent you a set of statements, and we're going to do both. So let's get into it right away with the first one, which is this is the first set of statements.
Okay.
And what we're going to do, do you happen to have them in front of you?
I could look them up if you want to.
That'd be great. We'll have you actually email them to you in a single email.
Okay.
Both sets, so you should be able to see them there, because what we like to do is we like to have our guests read them.
Right. Got it here.
Awesome.
Yeah, very good.
So
here's
the
my
first
first
set of
set.
statements. So here's statement A.
I love to practice. Statement B
Yes.
is I love to do 80K bike rides. And statement C is I love beach holidays and do nothing for 2 weeks in the summer.
Okay. So those are up on the screen right now. So if you're watching, your job is to vote on the comments for which of these statements you believe is a blatant lie. So two of these are true. And Johannes, you didn't tell me which one is the lie. So I'm also
true.
I'm also playing the game.
Good.
I have some clues from knowing you and your work, but I will also play. But I'm not gonna vote quite yet. I want everybody who's watching to vote first. Now, let's go back in time here to your childhood and your teenage years in Munich. And will you share with everybody? I mean, how did you get started with music?
Well, I got started even before I was born because my mother's a singer. So, up until she was pregnant with me in the 7th or 8th month, she was still giving performances. So I heard music, even before I was born. So that kind of conditioned me very early on. And then I started with some early music lessons when I was I think 2 or 3, and started with my first instrument when I was 5, which was not the cello, but it was the violin. We should have included that in that.
That's a good one.
That's a good one, exactly. Yeah, next time. And the violin was just not the instrument for me. It was just awful. And then I switched to the cello. It was really awful. I mean, it sounded like I was torturing a cat or something like that. And it was not okay. And the neighbors kept like, what's going on there? And
no, let me ask you though. I mean, was it you who walked away from the violin, or were you encouraged to walk away from the violin?
I think it was a mixture of both. And at some point, the violin itself just walked away. I think it just had enough. It was just enough. Enough's enough,
Okay.
So my father's a cellist, so it was clear that would be the next choice. And as soon as I sat down and I felt those low frequencies, and I felt like, it just all fell into place very quickly. And I've loved working ever since.
And did you start lessons with your father at first?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did that for about 1.5 years, and then I went to a different teacher. But my father kept working with me, and I think when you come from a musical family, I think the huge benefit is that your parents work with you, and they tell you, hey, you play out of tune here, and they're like, play this piece or play that piece. And I think in families in general, I mean, are such an important support system for anybody who's learning an instrument, and I think that is always good to remember that, as with an instrument, we give something into the family, but also the family needs to support the young musicians.
Yes, and we see that every single day at MYS, and we're so thankful to have this community of families who are, not only, sometimes at home enduring, the practice sessions, but also, driving kids to rehearsals and to lessons, and helping students balance their musical pursuits with their academics and all of that.
Yeah, it's a huge commitment on everybody's part. And I mean, when you see that work out, and when I see, kids being dropped off at orchestra practice, like that makes me feel good, because it means like, yeah, that people are behind it. I love that.
Did you play in a youth orchestra growing up?
I did several, yeah, until
Yeah.
they kicked me out.
How was that? Before you got kicked out, how was that
No, no, no.
experience?
I mean, I didn't get kicked out. I think I loved the sense of community. I was always a very shy kid, so for me, going into youth orchestras was also a big challenge, but it paid off, because in the end, I felt welcomed into the community of musicians. Um, but I think, looking back, I mean, these first school orchestra experiences, and also these first experiences in youth orchestra, they made me understand what it means to uh, make music as a collective, and how that can actually channel energy, also into an audience, but also back to yourself. And the fact that you play in an orchestra, and through the orchestra you create something that is bigger than what you put in. I think that is an absolutely wonderful experience, and whoever is lucky enough to have that experience, to play in an orchestra, um, I think is grateful for that. If they know it or not, I mean, they will know later in life, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you know what? That is one feature that I find in all of my favorite soloists, also including yourself, that when you're playing as a soloist with the orchestra, you're still part of that collective, creating something together. And of course, you're a very active chamber musician, so that element is also there. And we talk about it in rehearsal. You know how important it is to be engaged and to really listen and to be part of that
Mm.
effort. Now, um, let me see how I can ask this. So you're in youth orchestra. You're in your probably your teenage years. Uh, what was your relationship like with your instrument and with your music making? Because one thing that, like, I'll speak for myself. When I was in my teenage years, sometimes I had trouble motivating myself to practice, right? And sometimes even though I loved music and I loved my violin, sometimes I would look at it and be like, what, why am I doing this? So what was your relationship like with your instrument?
Well, Raul, I'm giving away one of the clues here.
Uh-oh.
Um, but I always loved to practice,
Okay.
and just since you asked, I just have to
Sure,
say it.
sure, sure.
But we have a second set coming, and I'm not going to say anything
Well,
there.
and we still have two to choose from, so
Exactly, absolutely.
yeah.
So the game is still on. Um, no, the experience with the cello, and me, was always that. Um, hmm, to tell you the truth, whenever I practiced, I didn't have to do my math homework, so there was an added benefit to my practicing. Um, but in all seriousness, I always felt that there is there is something so physical about the instrument, how I felt it, that I was really missing it if there ever came a time when I didn't practice for 1 or 2 days. I didn't just emotionally miss it, but also physically
Yeah.
miss the instrument. And I I remember that it gave me great satisfaction from the very beginning, and I didn't quite understand why, um, until I understood that I have a tendency to enjoy problem solving. And I love doing Sudokus, and I love doing, like, riddle kind of situations. And practicing is nothing else. It is problem solving. You have a problem, you have a scale, and you need to get it in tune, or you have a phrase and you need to go through it, or whatever it is. And that sense of problem solving was becoming quite an adventure for me. So when I understood that I really have these riddles in front of me, and I need to tackle them with full force, that was something that motivated me a lot. And performing, I mean, I was always very nervous as a kid to perform, but at the same time, I loved it. So, also a contradiction there. But I mean, for the practicing part, whenever I hear people say, like, to this day, I hate practicing. And I'm like, well, there is so much joy in it. And also, practicing itself can be a creative process, I find, right? I mean, the way you organize your practice, the way you choose which technique to use to solve a problem. I mean, that's a very creative and exciting process. So I don't see where the boredom could possibly come from.
Yeah, I think that I absolutely agree with that, and I don't think there's any other way to come at it. But what needs to be there is mindfulness, right? Because what we encounter often in students is that practicing becomes just sort of repetition,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. And
And
that's the worst thing you can do,
right.
basically.
So what's a practice session for you like? Do you have a structure? How do you do it?
Well, it depends what I have on the table. I mean, right now I'm in the weird situation that there is not a concert the next day. So I mean, that's a very, and we'll come to that, I'm sure, in a second. But usually there is a necessity that I have to get a certain amount of pieces ready because I'm playing them next week, next month, or in 3 months' time. So what I do is I put practice sessions in my calendar, so I know that 3 months from now I have to play Saint-Saëns, so I'll put it in the calendar now. I do a week of Saint-Saëns, which means that usually it's a technical brush up, and then I let it sit, and then I come back to it in 2 weeks' time, and so on. And I put it in my calendar because otherwise with 12 concertos, sometimes 15 concertos in a season, I lose track what I have to work on. So in order not to also panic, it's good to just know when to practice what. And a typical practice session would start with just basics. So I do my scales, I do my double stops, I do some bow exercise, just get the body ready. I mean, I try to warm up my body before I even touch the cello. So I do some physical exercise because that is preventing me from getting injury. And so far, I've been absolutely injury free when it comes to the cello, which is great. Knock on wood. And then I dive into the pieces, and I have a little book where I take notes, what progress I've made the day prior, and then I try to continue where I left off. So it may seem a little bit over organized in a way, but when you have to juggle so many pieces, it's just important to have a good structure in place. And sometimes, like on one day, I in a week, I decide, what, away with the structure. Today, I'll just play, and then I'll play for 3-4 hours, just whatever comes to mind, and then that also is very liberating and very necessary. So, yeah.
So basically, you create a structure, and again, I think that's so important. At any level and any age, and I think for some of our very young students, parents can help with that, and also
Mm-hmm.
private teachers can help with finding that structure, so that practice sessions also bring a sense of accomplishment,
Mm,
right?
exactly.
Now, how's your process different when you're tackling a new piece, because you commission a lot of new music and you play a lot of new music?
Mm-hmm. Well, you're absolutely right about that. I mean, the process is vastly different because, first of all, there is no recording you can listen to. There is no point of reference. So you really start from not knowing anything. And I always feel like an archaeologist that just found one bone of that Triceratops, and is starting with the toothbrush, like brushing off the sand. And after a while, the whole skeletal structure appears, and that is fascinating when you start with just going from note to note and from phrase to phrase, and then suddenly you're like, wow, something is looking at me, that I didn't see before. And it's that those moments of discovery that I live for when I do new commissions, because it's just such an adventure, you know, and you can do it from the comfort of your home.
Yes.
I don't need to sweat I mean, I'm very happy to exert myself in sports and do some adventures, but when it comes to my work, I have the sense of adventure and excitement, although I'm at home. So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And when it comes to a piece like a I think a war horse, I think is the expression of the cello repertoire, like a concerto that's part of the, standard repertoire. Um, do you have any piece that you have played for many years over time that your relationship with that piece has also changed? Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I started playing the Dvorak Concerto when I was maybe 20 or 21, and I'm now 40. So you can imagine that in these 20 years, of course, a lot of things happened in my life. Good things, not so good things, and also pretty terrible things. And as I changed as a human being, also my relationship to my music changed a lot. And of course, with the pieces that you play over and over again, you see how you change yourself in relation to the piece that the notes don't change.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting thing that you see how your view on music and on this particular music changes, and but also on life, I guess. Um, and I think it is very sad when I hear musicians talk about a definitive version of a piece, because that means that they believe that music is stuck and music is that there is perfection, or that there is a definitive version, and that is not true. Music is something very malleable, and it's something very you can bend it in whatever way that you feel is appropriate at that moment, and that keeps the art form alive. And I mean, people ask me, do I get bored of playing the Dvorak or the Rococo or the Shostakovich or Lutoslawski? And the answer is absolutely not, because we all are different every day, because our cells change, our opinions change, our situation changes drastically, and the audience is different every night, and the orchestra is different every night, and I have different breakfast each morning, So I mean, all these factors change everything, and so to say that Dvorak is just absolute nonsense.
Isn't it magical? And like you were saying earlier, that you love theater, and it's like saying there's a definitive version of a Shakespeare play, right? You go and you see a play and you see a production of a play, and it's the same text, but you're
Mm.
gonna get one experience. But then you go see a different production that's just as artistically valid, but you're gonna get something different out of it, and it's exactly the same text.
Well, it's
Um,
very cool that you mentioned Shakespeare, because a couple of years ago I saw, I think, 5 Hamlet productions in the course of, I think, maybe 2 months or something like that, because it just sort of lined up, and one of them was an opera and one of them was just a different play, and those were all different pieces. They were just completely different, and of course there was To Be or Not to Be, that had to go in there, but otherwise it was completely different. Also, of course, Shakespeare lends itself to that, because you can approach this from so many different angles, so you can hold on to two different personalities within the play. But I don't mean to overcomplicate the matter, but you were absolutely spot on with that opinion.
okay, and now let's transition here a little bit. I'd like to reveal the truth, the remaining truth from this set of.
Mm.
But before we do that, then, or rather, after we do that, there's a question from a student, Naomi, who's one of our cellists,
Hey, Naomi.
who's asking what physical warm-ups do you do before practicing, and how about we do this? We'll reveal the truth, and then maybe you can demonstrate a couple of warm-ups that you'd like to do, and then you can play a little something for us.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay,
Yeah, very good.
so uh, we know now that you love to practice, so that's a truth. And a few people actually said A, thinking that that was a lie. So those people are wrong. So we know that's a truth. So I'm going to remove it from the screen, and we're left with two statements. Statement B: Johannes loves to do 80-kilometer bike rides. Statement C: Johannes loves beach holidays and does nothing for 2 weeks in the summer. So which one of these is a true statement?
It's B. When I'm here in Munich, I have my mountain bike with me, and I love to go around a lake which from door to door, so to speak, takes exactly 80 kilometers, and it's the best thing to do. It clears my mind like nothing else, and I feel exhausted afterwards, but it's the best kind of exhaustion.
How long does that take, roughly?
Oh, I take breaks, and because it's around the lake, I'll jump in the lake,
Nice.
so it's nice. It's
Yeah, you posted a video quite recently of you on your bike on your Facebook page and
nice.
talking about how
Hmm.
that allows you to just uh, it brings a different sort of break in your
Yeah,
day.
absolutely. And I mean, my activity is so sedentary. I mean, with the practicing, and of course, now that we are all resorting to digital forms of communication of performance, it is even more because now I'm recording a lot of videos, so I have to edit them and all that. So there's a lot of sitting around. Getting out on the bike or running is absolutely perfect.
Okay, so folks watching, if you answered C, you were correct. That's a lie, and I do see several C's. Now, is this entirely a lie? Do you hate beach holidays or?
Well, I don't hate anything because I'm not a really hateful guy, but I get really antsy, and it's not relaxation for me. Relaxation for me comes through activity. So a good hiking holiday, or a couple of years ago I went I traversed the Alps on the mountain bike, so that was fantastic.
Whoa.
And yeah, I mean, sounds harder than it was. It was actually rather mild, but it was, yeah. I mean, just anything active is something that I really enjoy. I am in last summer I started scuba diving, and I went to the Great Barrier Reef because one of my concert tours took me to Australia, and so that was a dream come true. And so yeah, another very active holiday
You
right there.
you know who's a certified scuba diver? And I learned this in one of these shows. Oregon Symphony principal cello Nancy Ives.
Nancy, exactly. Yeah, we talked about it, and she goes scuba diving with her mom, which is amazing.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Okay.
cool. It's so
So
awesome.
there it is, everybody. The lie it was C, and we have another set of statements for a little later. But so Johannes, how about we transition into Naomi's question, and
Mhm.
that'll take us to your performance.
Perfect. So I'll let me see. I will disconnect the headphones. So, can you still hear me?
Yes.
So yeah, perfect. So I'll show you some of the warm-ups that I do. Basically, I feel because we are all on our devices these days, it's really good to just warm up the upper body. So I don't want to hit anything here, but what I like to do is arm curling. So I do this windmill,
Mm.
which is something that I find really helpful, and also all the muscles in your back that are next to the spine, they warm up through that jiggly motion. So that's really cool. Then I go like this, and I try to open up. It's already was a little bit of a crack in the shoulder, so I open up all of this because we sit on the computer or in front of our desks, and it's good to open up right here. And then I do jumping jacks, for example. So I'll do 100 of these, for example, and then I have like a whole yoga routine that I add on to that. But it's really very um, shall we say, very just simple stuff, just moving the body, and that's something that really warms me up. And I'm actually warmed up now, so why don't we hear some Bach? What do you say?
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay, I hope the microphone is not too close. But does that sound okay? Would you say?
Yes.
Yep, very good.
Everybody, put your hands together for Johannes Moser. We do a emoji applause. Thank you. That was wonderful. Will you talk a little bit about the piece and your relation, perhaps, with the Bach suite?
Absolutely. Um, well, actually, I listened to the Bach suites first when I was about 9 years old. Let me put in my headphones again. And can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you see?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And I always found them really complicated and dry, and I didn't really connect with them until I saw a dance performance with the Bach suites, and I understood the physical quality of these pieces, and that really changed a lot. Now, when I started at my university as a teacher, there was a course in Baroque dance, and naturally, not enough guys applied for it, so I had to stand in, and it was an amazing experience because all these dances that I previously had mostly known from the instrument and from the instrumental side, suddenly I got to feel them in a physical way, and and that was a total game changer. And it's also changed how now I think about the suites and how I teach them also, because I try to look at it much more from a physical point of view rather than a purely intellectual and maybe a little bit distanced dry view.
Yes. Yes. Um, Johannes, how about let's reveal the second set of statements now for the truths and lies, and we'll put those up on the screen. And then I would love to talk with you about the Oregon Symphony and your role as artist in residence. So,
Sounds good.
do you have those in front of you?
I do.
Okay, so here we go.
A, I love hiking.
Okay.
B, my Andrea Guarneri cello was made when Johann Sebastian Bach was only 9 years old. And C, I premiered a piece for electric cello with a Berlin Phil and Claudio Abbado.
Okay, so these are up on the screen right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a little bit of a clue about one of them from our conversation a little bit ago, but not that much. So, if you're watching, folks, again, vote for the statement that you believe is a lie. Okay, and while people do that, let's talk about the Oregon Symphony and your relationship with them and your current role as artist in residence. So, how did this all get started?
Well, I came to the Oregon Symphony a couple of years ago, and I was scheduled to play the Schumann Cello Concerto, and I landed in Portland, and there was an inch of snow, and naturally for Portland, the whole city shut down. And being a Munich boy, like when there is like 3 feet of snow, maybe people will put on a scarf or something like that, but everything continues as usual. And the best thing was there was a snow plow. There was one snow plow in the city, but it had to plow up. So it drove through the city, and I was like, "This is not how you do this. You have to put it down.
That's not how it works.
Man. That's not how this works, man." So yeah. Anyways, so that was my first experience. So 2 of the 3 performances were canceled, but still that one performance was really amazing, and I was actually blown away by the seriousness, but also the joyful music making that came from the Oregon Symphony right through that Schumann. And then I came back, and I remember that we, through the wonderful work of Monica Hayes, who is responsible for the outreach activities and also responsible for the Artist in Residence program, she scheduled a lot of outreach with me that second time I came. And that is one of my absolute passions, and it's also a passion of the Oregon Symphony because not only are they excellent at their music making, but also they really care about their community, and you can really, you can really see that there is an organization that doesn't just want this for PR reasons, but they really care about their community, and and that is fantastic. And um, when they put me in some of these outreach situations, they saw that it worked quite well and that I feel comfortable with that. And they thought, well, would be a good idea to put Johannes in the role of the artist in residence. And so I've been back 2 consecutive years, and I'm scheduled to come back in October, which hopefully will take place, with a world premiere as sort of the last bit of my residency. The 2 concerti that I played as part of my residency were Shostakovich and Lutosławski, which are probably my favorite pieces from the 20th century. But I thought, we'll also have to take it into the 21st century. And so we're going to do the Robin Holloway cello concerto. And, when you come back to an orchestra over and over again, you form friendships. And so my relationship to the Oregon Symphony is very personal. I mean, you mentioned Nancy, but the whole cello section is absolutely wonderful, wonderful. Wonderful players, excellent players, and wonderful human beings. And so I have a very good relationship with them. But also throughout the orchestra, there are so many members that I now get to know better, and it's such a wonderful place. I see a lot of orchestras, and a lot of orchestras really have troubles in the social structure, because you get one group that is really divided, or you get a group that really thinks they don't belong there or something like that. So I mean, it can be very problematic. And at least in my visits with the Oregon Symphony, I did not feel that, but I felt like everybody was really going for the best of their ability, combined with a great human warmth and kindness.
Yeah, and they're so generous, and they work with our students a lot. Most of our coaches that come to work with our students are from the Oregon Symphony, and they're just always so generous with their time, and I feel like they have like you're saying, a true heartfelt interest in the well-being of the community, in this case, the artistic growth of our young musicians. So I think
absolutely.
Very lucky to have them. And speaking of education, which is an outreach, which are some of your big passions, I have a short video I want to play for everybody. This video is on your website, and it's from a project or a tour you did called Sounding Off Tour. So I'm going to play it first, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so here it goes. It's about 40 seconds long. So what's happening here?
So these are cubes that are, well, the technical explanation is that they have a MIDI interface, and through the cubes you can change sounds. And when we did the Sounding Off tour, we wanted to make a tour that focused on contemporary music. That's where Phyllis Chen, the toy pianist, came in. And we wanted to focus on outreach, because these were things that we were both passionate about. And so we thought, why don't we pre-program some snippets of music, and the kids that have the cubes, they can actually trigger them and they can alter the music. And so it's literally a very hands-on way to experience electronic music and what it can do for you. And so I love these cubes. They're absolute, and they're beautiful. I mean, they change the color and everything, so that's very cool.
Yeah. So and talk a little bit more about the tour. How long was it? and what other sort of activities that you do, and do you have anything like that going on right now or into the future?
So what it entailed was that I was this pianist Phyllis Chen, and she also plays the toy piano. So that's, as we know, like a Snoopy piano, and it's a fascinating instrument because it has such a distinct sound and such beauty in sound. And we thought, well, let's use all the toys that we can find for music making. And so I did not only use these cubes that you saw, but also, do you remember Nintendo Wii?
Yeah, of
Like,
course.
yeah, so where you could play tennis. And so I took a Wii controller, and with the Wiimote, you could I would give that to a student, and through the motion, they could change the sound. And so it took some programming, but it's actually very simple. And so even someone that was not previously exposed to playing an instrument suddenly was able to get the feeling of what it means to manipulate music in a meaningful way. So that was the one part. That was the outreach part. The other part was that we wanted to perform in alternative venues. So there were a lot of bars involved. There were a lot of concerts venues that maybe were in a back room of a hotel, for example, or something like that. So things that are very common now, and this tour is only 10 years ago, but it seemed like kind of a cutting edge thing, at least for me at the time, because I grew up in the normal concert halls, so to speak. So to really push that to another limit and push that envelope was very educational for me, because of course now with all the outreach that I continue doing, if ever there is an element of trying something that is unusual, or trying something that I haven't experienced before, at least I know, give it a go, and I can. Chances are that it's going to be fun and it's going to be cool, right? And that is nice, because I also have a lot of colleagues that only play their concerts, shall we say, and some of them are pretty bored, and that's a pity, because our profession can provide such a variety and such a richness of experience, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, my absolute favorite thing about that video that we just watched is just the smiles in the kids' faces, and just the spark in their eyes with wonderment and with joy, right? And
Yeah.
now you're saying you grew up in the traditional concert hall, right? And part of your bio here says that you're on a quest to expand the reach of the classical genre. So is this what you mean by bringing this music to new audiences, or?
Yes, it's part of it. I mean, the we shouldn't kid ourselves. I mean, the experience with playing with a cube will not necessarily will make a child of 10 years will want to hear a Mahler symphony. I mean, it's a gradual process of growth. But I think not everybody has the means or has the privilege of getting in touch with music. And I do a lot of school visits, and I will say, if there's a classroom of, let's say, 25 or 30 kids, if two or three of them are interested enough after my class to go to Google and Google cello, or go to YouTube and put in, Dvorak or Bach or something like that, or two cellos, I don't know, just something that had been unbeknownst to them before, then I already feel it's a success. I mean, I'm not setting out to convert the world into avid classical music lovers. It structurally, it was never like that, and it will never be like that. Yeah. So we will always this will always remain an art form that you really have to choose actively, because it does take an investment on your part. I find. I mean, to sit for 2 hours relatively still and really focus on what is going on stage. I mean, that is a true commitment. But I think if you're genuinely interested And if you are also educated in a way that maybe you have played an instrument and you know what it takes to play a Schubert symphony or to play a Mozart Jupiter, then with that sense of appreciation, you will also enjoy the performance much more. Because in the end, it's not about a chore. I mean, if people go to the concert and they feel like, oh, another St. Matthew's Passion or, oh, another Beethoven 7, then don't go, like go if it really blows your socks off. Yeah. And I think that's what I go for in my performances is I try to give people the richest experience they can have in those 20, 30, 40 minutes that I'm up there on stage. And if I'm unable to deliver that, then I think that it's a huge shortfall on my part.
Mm-hmm. And at that very, very initial, very early moment with kids, I mean, I agree with you that just exposure, will enrich their lives, mm-hmm. and they can take that. Some of them might take that to, started to play an instrument, but at the very least, you gave that to them in that moment, and you engage their curiosity. Okay, I have a couple of questions from people watching, but before we get to those questions, mm-hmm. let's reveal the last set of truths and lies. Okay.
Sounds good.
So
okay.
A bunch of people voted. I see a trend here, but let's see. Let's reveal one of the truths, please, Johannes.
Mm-hmm. So B is definitely a truth. My Andrea Guarneri cello was made when Bach was only 9 years old. So it's
cool?
old.
Isn't that a cool thing to think about, like in terms of that?
That's weird.
Your cello is from 1694.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you had it?
1695. No, I've had it now for about 10 years. It belongs to a private collector, and it's a great instrument.
Yes, indeed. So, okay, that is a true statement, everybody. And actually, it looks like most people said B. So, you guys are wrong. B is true. Okay, so I'll remove that. We're left with two statements, A and C. Which one of these is true?
A is true. I love hiking.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the one we got a clue about, because earlier you said that you enjoy being outdoors and going your leisure time. You like it to be, active and do adventures. Exactly. So, C is a lie, but actually it's a half lie.
Okay.
Right? Because you did premiere a piece for electric cello.
I did. But that was in Los Angeles with Gustavo Dudamel in 2011. Yes, and that piece, Magnetite, I hope that I can bring it one day to Portland and to the Organ Symphony, because that is a rocking piece. And just the moment when I step on stage with the electric cello that just looks like, a spaceship. And everyone's like, oh, what is that? I love it.
Yeah. So. Was it recorded? I mean, imagine like at least archival or?
There are a lot of YouTube clips actually. Yeah, where because I've been playing it maybe 25 or 30 times since. So we've performed it a lot, which is very unusual for a contemporary piece to have such a life. So I'm very happy that this one did.
And that's worth looking up. I'm gonna put it on the screen. So it's Magnetar by Enrico, is it Capella?
Chapella.
Mm-hmm.
Mexican.
Oh wow! Okay, I am definitely gonna look it up. So it's up on the screen. Cool. Okay, so Johannes, before we let you go, let me forward a couple of questions here.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Who or what have been your biggest musical influences?
My parents, definitely. And music, and well, I would say artists in general that always tried to push the envelope and had been ahead of the curve. One of them being Miles Davis, I would say, Kandinsky, Picasso, just to name sort of the most famous names. I love the painter Cy Twombly, so I always take inspiration from that, and I can't even tell you what the inspiration is. It's not like I'm playing more in tune after like looking at a Cy Twombly painting. If anything, the contrary. But I think what it does is it just gives me a general soul food, and I think that that is something that I take into my day and my practice, and just sort of gets my inspirational juices flowing.
Absolutely love also that you draw inspiration from other arts,
Mm.
right? And not only music. I think it's important for young musicians
Oh yeah,
to do that, and
absolutely.
to look for inspiration in literature and in theater and visual arts, but really
Mm.
anything in your life you can grab something from that and learn something from it, and bring that into your music making.
Absolutely.
Second question: at what point did you know that you wanted to pursue music as your career?
Um, I think it was when I was 16. I won the national competition for youth musicians here in Germany. I got the first prize. And then I thought, maybe this could work out. I could start my studies with that. Um, and then when I was 17, I really ran out of options because math was not going great. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a go. But really, until and then when I was 23, I won a competition in Moscow. So that also changed my path because I wanted to go into orchestra before. So it changed my path into a more solo oriented path. Um, but really, until my late 20s, beginning of 30s, was I really sure that I could sustain a life with this. And with the conviction starting when you were like 15, 16, taking 15 years to really absolutely believe in what you do. I mean, it's a long process, and but I think it was worth having those doubts because they definitely kept me going and kept me working.
And along those same lines, and this question is from me,
Mhm.
uh, Johannes Moser in April of 2020. What advice do you have for little Johannes Moser when he was 13 years old?
Um, Music is a team sport, and don't try to do everything on your own, but um, how you can branch out to other musicians, other artists, other people that are like-minded, or also not like-minded, and try to find common ground. I think I would have encouraged little Johannes Moser to branch out a little bit more and do collaborative projects. I think,
Amen. That's awesome.
yeah.
And Johannes, before we let you go, we have a little segment here at the end of the show that we just call the plug. So, is there anything that you would like to plug or bring attention to right now, whether it's any of your online activities or anything at all that you want people to check out? Or
Well, in fact, actually, that's it's good that you mentioned that because since Corona hit, I had more time on my hands, so I started doing this masterclass series. So if you are interested in advancing your instrumental knowledge and playing, and also getting some tips on how to develop your playing, you can check out my masterclasses. They're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, whatever your social media drug is these days. You will find it there. And what I really want to bring attention to is that I'm in love with the Oregon Symphony and all the wonderful things that they do. And I'm also so grateful that you had me on your show, and it was a lot of fun to talk to
this
you.
was indeed a lot of fun. Thank you so much for your generosity in taking time to do this for our students and their families. And I, for one, cannot wait to see you and hear you in person on stage in a theater full of people, healthy and
Yes,
happy. So thank
let's
you again,
do that.
Johannes. So everybody, check out Johannes' social media for information on his masterclass series. And thanks again.
Thank
Johannes,
you.
I'll let
Thank
you
you.
go
Great to
now
talk to
and
you.
we'll
Thank you.
wrap the show. Bye, take care. Okay, that was just spectacular. So thank you to Johannes Moser. Thank you to all of you for watching. Thank you to the Oregon Symphony for bringing him to us here as artist in residence. Um, Here's our upcoming few shows. On Tuesday, we have Rocky Rodriguez, a midfielder from the Portland Thorns, who's going to be speaking to us about her journey in sports, her interest in music, and also how discipline is a key component in all of that we all do. Then Wednesday, April 15th, we're not going to have a guest on this day. Instead, we're going to do the first ever MYS meme tournament. Okay, so if you're an MYS student, you're going to have an opportunity to submit memes, and I will email everybody with the details of how this is going to work. But basically, we'll select finalists in two categories: found memes and original content memes, and we'll just have a bracket and we'll vote. We'll do head-to-head meme offs, and we'll end with meme champions. Then on Thursday, April 16th, Kevin Lefon will be with us. He's an MYS conductor of our Hillsborough Chamber Strings and also a phenomenal violinist, soloist, chamber musician, teacher. He's so cool, and I admire what he does. And then Friday, 1 week from today, at a regular time of 4 p.m., Suzanne Nance, the president and CEO of All Classical Portland, my favorite radio station in the whole world, is going to be on the show also to share about her own journey and also about all the many, many things that All Classical does for the community, not only here in Portland, but really all around the world, because you can listen to them online. And I love All Classical, and I'm super excited to have Suzanne as our guest next Friday. And that's it, everybody. Thank you for watching. I'm so inspired by Johannes, and I'm sure you are as well. And I will leave you with a little music with Johannes, and this is piano trios with Vadim Gluzman, Johannes Moser, and Evgeny Zudbin. And here we go. Okay, bye everybody, take care.